Hey, so hello everyone. It's really nice having you all. We have really a great diversity of African countries joining today, and we're really happy to start with you this first webinar in the series of promoting reproducibility in Africa. And to start off, I'll give a brief introduction about me. I'm Lamis Elkheir. I'm the co-director of the African Reproducibility Network and the training lead. And I think, Emmanuel, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Emmanuel Boachi, and I'm also the co-director and community engagement lead at AREN. Nice to have you here. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you know who we are. And as I said, today is our first webinar in a series that we're probably going to extend it all over the year, where we're going to be talking about different aspects of reproducibility. But we thought that maybe for the very first webinar, it's better to put everyone on the same level so that we could all move forward. That's why we decided that we'll start with an introduction to reproducibility. Okay, so in this webinar, we're going to be giving a brief introduction. We're also going to be defining some key terms, and we're going to talk extensively about the reproducibility crisis that is currently taking all the news. And we're also going to touch on how open science could offer a solution for this crisis. And we'll also discuss briefly about the current efforts and progress that's been happening to alleviate this issue. And of course, we'll end up with some key takeaways. So we'll start with what is reproducibility. I'm pretty sure that many of you have heard the term a lot, but maybe you don't really know what reproducibility means. So it's simply the ability for a study or an experiment to be repeated by researchers using the same methods, data, and tools used in the original study. And the end goal is that you should obtain the same results. So we're going to use the same data, the same method, the same tools, and by common sense, if we use these same things, we're supposed to get the same results. So this is what is meant by reproducibility. And actually, reproducibility is one of the most important principles of open science. So open science have a lot of pillars, principles, and values, and reproducibility takes up a big part of open science. It's actually one of the reasons why open science started to gain more popularity in the previous years. Yet you could see a lot of time that the term reproducibility is used interchangeably with replicability. We usually see these words used interchangeably. However, they are a bit different. So it's actually important for us to briefly explain what is the difference between reproducibility and replicability. So in both reproducibility and replicability, the end goal or our end aim is to obtain similar conclusions or findings. We want to obtain the same results to the study that we're reproducing or replicating. Yet in reproducibility, we use the same data and the same analysis. So the same data and the same analysis that has been done by the original study, we use it, and of course, we want to obtain the same results and conclusions. However, and reproducibility, what it does is ensure consistency of findings. The findings are consistent and using the original setup of the study. While in replicability, we use different data, yet we use the same analysis to get the same findings. And this focuses more on the robustness of the finding. If we could get the same results from different data, this means that the findings are really robust, and they're not just dependent on the data. And different conditions does not really affect the finding or the conclusion of the study. So in reproducibility, we want to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the reported findings. We're mainly concerned about accuracy and reliability. Yet in replicability, we're sort of trying to look at the bigger picture. We're trying to see if these findings and conclusions are generalizable and valid across different conditions, whether these be different populations or different ethnicities or whatever it was. So yeah, it's important to know the difference between reproducibility and replicability, yet it's also important to know that in many instances they are used interchangeably. And this diagram, it's from the Turing Way. It sort of explains nicely what's the difference between reproducible and replicable research. So as you can see here, I'll try to get my laser pointer. Yeah. So as you can see here, in when we talk about reproducible research, we are going to use the same data and the same analysis, and these are two different researchers. They used the same data and the same analysis, and they came up with the same finding. While in replicable studies, different data sets were used with the same analysis, and they also led to the same finding. So why is reproducibility important? Why are we hearing, a lot of fuss about reproducibility and, a lot of studies trying to do reproducibility? So it's simply because when we have reproducible research, that means that the trust and credibility of scientific findings are robust. We uphold the trust and credibility of scientific findings. And we provide a dependable foundation for future research, because if the original findings were not valid, this means that everything that is built upon these findings is not going to be valid. So these are the main two things that is why reproducibility is important. And these two things represent different importance to different stakeholders. So we have the different stakeholders are the scientific community, the public, the funders, and the policymaker. So for the scientific community, what they require from reproducibility or hope to gain from reproducibility is that they could easily build on published results, so that if I get a research for someone, I can be certain that I can use these results to come up with new hypotheses and to test new hypotheses. And for the public, it's about avoiding misinformation. And we can really see that the public is growing more and more weary and trying to avoid adhering to scientific findings. And they're trying to figure things on their own. And this is largely due to the reproducibility crisis. And the public can see that, the scientists are sort of disagreeing on things or coming to really different findings. So all of this leads to misinformation to the public. And for the funders, of course, they need the studies to be reproducible because they need an informed way to allocate resources. They don't want to spend a lot of money on doing a research that was originally built on something that is not correct or not reproducible. And finally, we have the policymakers, and of course, they need to make informed decisions, and of course, they need to know that these informed decisions are valid and trustworthy and credible. So we cannot really talk about reproducibility without talking about rigor, and rigor is related to both replicability and reproducibility. And what rigor means is that it's the strictness, precision, and careful execution of research method, And what it does when we're rigorous in our research, this ensures that the validity, the reliability, and accuracy of our scientific findings and investigations are very high, are up to high standards. And so if you want to define what is a rigorous study, it would be a study that follows well-defined methodologies. It uses appropriate statistical techniques and avoid biases. So, this is also one of the very important terms that you will hear it being mentioned while mentioning reproducibility or replicability. And of course, without rigor, we will not be able to be reproducible or be able to replicate studies. So, what we've just said is sort of the utopia. This is the best case scenario and the thing that all of us are aspiring to do, and all of us for a long time thought that is true. Most of us believed in scientific findings, and if something is published, we're sort of reassured that this is credible, I can trust it, I can build on it, and this has been going for a long time. However, recently we started to see something that is called the reproducibility crisis. And it refers to significant challenges within the scientific community where it's difficult to, or even impossible to replicate or reproduce scientific studies. So as scientists, we're trying to reproduce or replicate some studies, they're more finding that they cannot come to the same conclusions, they cannot come to the same results. And this was the spark of the reproducibility crisis. And of course, as we said, reproducibility is about reliability and integrity. The reproducibility crisis led to the opposite. It led to rising of big concerns about the reliability and integrity of published research findings. So this is why also it's very important that us as researchers know what is the reproducibility crisis. And to give a bit of a timeline of when really the reproducibility crisis became a big issue and made all of news, it actually started particularly after several landmark events. The first event happened in 2011, and it's actually a company called Bayer or Bier. I'm not sure if the pronunciation is right. And this is a pharmaceutical company, and it was trying to, find new valid targets for them to design new drugs for. And the first thing that they did is that they tried to replicate some of the studies. So they replicated 67 studies, and they find 25% of these studies, which are published on oncology, women's health, and cardiovascular indications, where only 25% were reproducible. Out of the 67 studies, only 25% of them were reproducible. So this was the first alarm bell. Then actually the next year in 2012, another pharmaceutical company, Amigen, it's an American company, and it also tried to reproduce 35 studies. Of course, again, they wanted to find new drug targets, and they only find that 11% of these 53 published studies were reproducible. So this was the second alarm bell. Then in 2015, we have the Center of Open Science, which is based in the USA, and it's one of the biggest centers that are working on open science and reproducibility in the whole world. And they decided to do a study about reproducibility in psychology studies. So they called it the Reproducibility Project. And what they found is that less than 50% of 100 published psychology studies were reproducible. So less than half of the studies that were published were actually reproducible. Then finally, I think in 2016, sorry, let me move that. So in 2016, Nature actually did a survey where it surveyed more than 1,500 researchers. And what it found is that, according to the response of the researchers, that 70% of them failed to reproduce another scientific experiment. 70% of them. And more than 50% of them failed to reproduce their own experiment, which is quite funny, you know. Even the researcher could not reproduce their own experiment that they did with their own hands. And it's really important to talk more about this nature study. So as you can see, this is one of the infographics that are in this publication. And as you can see, the failure to reproduce an experiment varies between different disciplines. It's the highest in chemistry. As you can see, almost 90% of scientists were not able to reproduce someone else's research, and almost 70% were not able to reproduce their own research. And again, this is basically more or less the same in all other disciplines. Yet, what's funny is that despite the evidence of the lack in reproducibility, 73% of these researchers that were surveyed still think that at least 50% of the papers in their field can be trusted, even though that they themselves cannot reproduce the studies, not just studies of others, but even their own studies. They still believe that they can still trust the scientific findings, the published scientific findings. So this was a big question mark, and this led to the conclusion that, you know, there really need to be greater efforts in enhancing the awareness of researchers on the reproducibility crisis, and try to talk them out of, you know, blindly trusting published literature. So actually, this study was really one of the studies that raised a lot of concerns and rang a lot of alarm bells. And I think after this study is where the reproducibility crisis was started to be more heard of, and more researchers are starting to know about it. So I really love this this comic. As you can see, it's titled as "Mistakes in Peer Reviews." A peer-reviewed paper are easy to find but hard to fix. And as you can see, it depicts the scientific publishing system as a fort. And, you know, these are the researchers that are trying to ring the alarm bells and telling them that there is something happening. They're trying to send a lot of messages, but unfortunately, no one is opening the door and no one is listening to these scientists. So again, this again explains the like really depicts the picture of what's happening currently in the scientific community. So now we've talked about the reproducibility crisis. So what are the implications? Well, the implications is definitely is going to be loss of public trust. And we are really seeing that. And I think we started to really see that with the COVID-19 pandemic, where a lot of researchers were coming to a lot of findings. Most of them were contradicting. And then, unfortunately, the public started to completely lose trust in the scientific community. The second thing is the waste of resources. Definitely, a lot of funding is allocated to do these studies, and it's simply a waste if these studies are not reproducible, and you know, people cannot build on them to further the scientific discourse. Then, of course, we have scientific stagnation, because again, we don't have a solid base through which we can build more studies. Or even if we did build more studies, these studies will not be robust and themselves will not be reproducible. And what happens at the end is that the scientific community will be stagnant and will not be able to move forward in their studies and findings. Then it's very important to briefly discuss what could be the causes of this reproducibility crisis. So there are several causes. There are quite many, but we're going to mention a few of them. So one of them is the poor methodology. People are basically, or scientists are not using robust methodologies and they're trying to cut corners. Then we have statistical errors. Many statistical errors are done in publications, and many scientists really don't know which statistical tools to use. Then we have the publication bias. We also have the pressure to publish. And finally, we have the lack of transparency. As I said, this is not an exhaustive list of the causes of the reproducibility crisis, but somehow the interplay between these different factors led to the reproducibility crisis. And then we're going to be talking in a bit more details into these different causes or factors of the reproducibility crisis. For the poor methodology, we have inadequate experimental design. Scientists are in a rush. Scientists just want to publish, so they just, try to cook something up, and they do not really follow the perfect experimental designs, or not even do these designs. Then we also have no standardized protocols. Many type of studies don't really have standardized protocols that people could turn to in order to make sure that they are doing all the right steps. Then we also have insufficient details in method descriptions. And I know this is something that I've personally suffered a lot from, and I think many of you did, is that you're trying to, see how the researchers did this experiment. And, there are many gaps in the methodology that eventually leads you to not being able to use their findings or use their methods in order to use it in your own research. So all of this, of course, lead to confounded and biased results. Of course, definitely, if the methodology is poor, if its execution is poor, this will lead to really biased and confounded results. Then we have the sorry, my laptop is freezing. Yeah. So next, we're going to talk about the statistical errors. And actually, this entails the misapplication of statistical methods, the manipulation of statistics to find significant results, p-hacking, and unfortunately, many scientists are guilty of this. They're simply trying to make the results more significant. And of course, most of the studies are done in small sample size because most of the studies are run on limited funding. And of course, the bigger the sample size, the more expensive the study is going to be. So if we have a small sample size, of course, this is lead to low statistical power. And at the end, this will definitely lead to incorrect conclusions. The manipulation, the use of wrong statistics will definitely lead to incorrect conclusions. Then we have the publication bias. And by that, we mean that publishers and journals are mainly interested in positive or novel findings. And researchers themselves are only interested in publishing these positive and novel findings, where I'm sure that every one of us who's been involved in research got some negative results or didn't even get results. Yet we tend to hide these, we tend to not discuss this. And this is a big problem because a negative result is a result. And if you could, publish this negative result, you're going to save a lot of time and resources for other people not to try the same thing that you tried. Yet, of course, the emphasis and the preference for positive and novel finding lead to the skewed understanding of reality. It makes scientific literature biased towards success, and this is far from being true. Actually, many of the studies and many of the research that we do are usually not successful. But then when you as a scientist see that all of this wonderfully, positive and novel finding, you sort of, feel like maybe you're the failure. But actually, this is the truth, the understanding of the scientific literature is biased towards success, even though that we know that this is far from being true. Then we have the pressure to publish. And I think, again, all of us have been through that, is the publish or perish mindset. You know, you have to publish, publish, publish in order to advance. So what this does is that scientists have to rush studies. They have, in order to keep up and in order to publish like 10 papers per year or 20 papers per year, they have to rush the studies, of course. They have to cut corners, definitely, and they will have to manipulate results. And this ties back to also, scientists are intentionally trying to make their results positive. And this leads to more appealing, and of course, these results will be more appealing to high impact journals. And this is a big issue. And this is one of the main things that open science is trying to stay away from. Open science is trying to put scientists and the scientific community in a mentality that does not value the research based on the impact factor of the journal that it's published on, but based on the value of the findings itself, whether it was positive or negative. And this is a big problem. Our big reliance on impact factors and high impact journals is really messing up the scientific discourse, and is a big contributor to the reproducibility crisis. Then we have the lack of transparency. And by the lack of transparency, we mean that usually we have limited access to the raw data or the code that was used in the studies. And most of the time, there is non-disclosure of all relevant experimental details. We all know that, those small tweaks, those small changes in temperature, the small increase of incubation time, these small tweaks really makes a difference. But then many researchers fail to mention these details in their experimental part. And of course, this ties back to the lack of transparency. And what this does is that it prevents other researchers from accurately replicating studies. If I do not have access to your raw data, if I do not have access to your code, and I do not really know the details of the methodology that you use, then definitely I will not be able to replicate your results. And definitely I will not be able to build upon your results to do another research. So the question is, how can research be more reproducible? We've talked about the reproducibility crisis. We talked about the causes of the reproducibility crisis. So how can we, as researchers, start to really start making our research more reproducible? And it's simply by completely scrapping all of these factors that lead to the reproducibility crisis. So utilizing good and open research practices is the only way to make our research more reproducible. There is no other way but me being open and adhering to good and standard research practices. So, for example, when it comes to the poor methodology, how can we avoid that? We should start developing and adhering to standardized protocols. Every type of study should have a standardized protocol that all scientists must have to adhere to make the methodology more robust and the results more robust. We also have to do comprehensive documentation of our methodologies and procedures. It's very important to mention all the small details, all the small tweaks that we did in our research to come to our finding, so that people could follow along. Then we need to also start practicing open reporting of methodologies and procedures. Again, there is always this fear of maybe scooping or competition that makes us not really being open with our methodologies and procedures, and not really putting the details of our methodologies openly to everyone, for everyone to see. So this could be some solutions for trying to mitigate the issue of poor methodology. Then we have the statistical errors, and we can mitigate that by really enhancing the education and training in robust statistical techniques for researchers. All researchers have to get training on statistical analysis. They have to learn how to choose the right statistical test for the research, or in worst case scenario, they have to have someone or somewhere that they can go to get accurate guidance on which statistical technique to use. We also need to be advocating for standardized statistical reporting, as the methodologies should be standardized, so that is the reporting of the statistical analysis that we are doing. It has to also to have standards so that people could easily follow the steps that was done during this statistical analysis. And again, of course, we have to use robust statistical analysis. We try to use good statistical analysis as much as we can, and try to avoid practices such as p-hacking, and trying to tweak our results using statistical analysis. Then we have the publication bias, and what we can do is that we should make sure that we report all results, including the negative and null findings, because again, a negative results on a null finding is a result in itself. It means that it tells researchers that maybe you shouldn't walk on this path because the end is closed. So you need to find something else, and this will save a lot of time and a lot of money for the scientific community. We should also promote the use of pre-registration and registered reports, and these are one of the open science practices, is that in the pre-registration, the people conducting the study, they submit basically the whole manuscript to a journal, of course, without the results. And then the journal try to analyze these reports, and it will then tell them, the peer reviews will tell them whether this methodology is good or not, and if they have to need to change something. And this, of course, will save the scientists time, so that not by the end, after they got the results, then when they go to the peer review, the peer reviewers tell them, oh, there was an issue in your methodology. So this is one of the practices that could mitigate the publication bias. And also the registered reports is a bit different. It's not per se submitting something to a journal, but there are certain platforms that scientists could go to and basically register the study or register the hypothesis of their study, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to find. And if you already, set your goal from the beginning, you will not be able, will not be tempted at the end to change, the hypothesis based on the results that you found, because now your hypothesis is openly there, and now you'll be sort of forced to report on whether this hypothesis worked or not. So these are some of the open practices that could be used to mitigate the publication bias. Then we move to the pressure to publish. What we can do is that we have to promote quality over quantity and impact of research. So we have to really assess a scientist, a scholar, based on the quality of the research that they are bringing, rather than its quantity. And this is something that we really need to work on. We need also to encourage the use of alternative metrics or alt metrics. And this is something that's really encouraged in open science, which doesn't really just look at the impact factor of the journal, the number of citation, but it looks into the, for example, the number of downloads of the paper, the number of the paper, for example, if it has been mentioned in social media, if it has been liked, if there are many comments on this paper. All of this goes into the alternative metrics to assess the quality of the paper rather than just looking at the impact factor of the journal that the article is published on. Then, of course, we have to collaborate. We have to really get out of the mindset of us competing, and we really need to start collaborating more, because when we collaborate, we'll definitely reach greater results. We'll be able to do bigger research, but unfortunately, the competition is a really big issue in the scientific community, especially in Africa. We really have a lot of competition, and everyone, is trying to be the one and only, instead of promoting let's all, advance together. Then we finally have the lack of transparency. And again, this could be mitigated by sharing methodology, data, and code openly, by ensuring open peer review. And this is one of the biggest issue. And I think one of the biggest thing that us as African researchers are facing is that there is a lot of bias when a reviewer, especially when we want to publish in international journals. The reviewers, once they see that this research came from Africa, then they automatically have this bias that this research will be substandard. Yet, if we make the peer review process open, meaning that the reports that usually, the emails that go back and forward between the editor, the reviewers, and the authors, if we make these open, then the reviewers will be more cautious, and they will make sure that if they reject the paper, they really have good reasons for rejecting the paper, not just because of their biases and of them thinking of, of African research being substandard. Then we should also encourage the use of open science infrastructure. And these are basically tools that has been developed by many institutions. For example, we have the OSF, which has been developed by the Center of Open Science, and is simply a tool that really make it easier to collaborate and make it easier to make everything open. When you're doing the study and after you're doing the study, it makes it very easy for the public to see your data, to see your methodology, and to see all of the communication that was happening during the conduction of the study. And we also have platforms such as Octopus, which allows you basically to publish each thing. For example, to publish the hypothesis on its own, to publish the data on its own, to publish the methodology on its own, and the results on its own, so that people could have a clear view of all the steps that has been done, and also for authors to have the ability of getting critique only on certain things. For example, if someone who is a biostatistician looked at a paper, he will most probably be able to critique the analysis, the statistical analysis that was done. He probably will not be able to critique the method or the hypothesis, but he will be able to critique the statistical analysis. So platforms like Octopus allow for this specific feedback to specific parts of a research. Then finally, we'll talk a bit about the current efforts and progress that has been done by stakeholders in trying to really stop the reproducibility crisis from advancing further. And from these stakeholders, we have the funding bodies. And what funding bodies have started to do is that they've started to actually require that grant applicants should submit their data management plan that outline how their data will be handled, shared, and archived before they get the funding. And by this, if you've submitted your data management plans, then you will not be able to change things, because you have a plan and you have to follow this plan that you've already submitted to the funder. They've also sometimes required pre-registration of the studies or publication of registered reports. And many funding bodies are currently providing significant amounts of funding to do replication and reproducibility studies. Then the other stakeholder is the publishers and the journals. And some of the things that they've been doing is that they require the authors to certain reporting standards to ensure that all the details that are needed for replication of a study is provided. For example, for clinical trials, we have the consort guidelines. So if you're trying to publish a clinical trial, many journals now will require you that you report based on these standards. Then also we are increasingly seeing publisher requiring that the authors have to submit the data with the publication. So they have to make the data publicly available as a condition of publication. And finally, more and more journals are starting to offer open peer review in order to increase the transparency and accountability when it comes to the peer review process. So with that, we come to the takeaways from our session today. And the main takeaways are that reproducibility and replicability are essential for validating scientific findings and ensuring research integrity. And then there are key factors that are contributing to the reproducibility crisis. We did mention some of them, and these include the lack of rigor, the inadequate peer review, and the restricted access to data. And we've shown how we as scientists could start to mitigate these factors and try to reduce them as much as possible. And finally, we've talked about how open science practices such as data sharing, preprinting, and open peer review could address this issue of reproducibility and hopefully reduce the reproducibility crisis. And at the end, I'd really like to end with this quote, which says that in the world of science, the reproducibility of research is what makes it reliable. So let's commit to making our research not just innovative, but also replicable and transparent for generations to come. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation, and I hope I wasn't too fast. And I think now the floor is open for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Lamis. It was wonderful and quite insightful and quite detailed. There was a lot that you shared. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand. So I can see Abdurrahman raise the hand first. So Abdurrahman, you can unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Thank you very much. And for good presentation. I just have some comments about an African papers. Thank you for your telling the truth. That's the truth from the journals.
Yeah, it is.
Reject when something comes from Africa.
It is.
And now we are having more journals that are coming from Africa.
Yes.
Also, we have East African journals. Me, I'm from East Africa, so I'm encouraging my people from Africa. Don't go outside. Start from Africa, then you go outside. On the other thing, I was publishing a paper, three of journals in Elsevier last year. Then when they see the name of Somalia, they refuse directly. With no apology, only English. They said your English is not standard. While the knowledge is there and the research is there, so we have been having a lot of problems. So I'm encouraging my community from Africa, please, let's start working together as an Africans. Then we can success. You know, one Africa country can feed all European countries. What about all African countries? They can feed all other in the world. So for Africans, we don't have any confidence ourselves. So what I'm encouraging for my community, please be started to your place. Come to Africa, then we can manage for others. That's what I'm just saying is a comment. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Abdurrahman. Like you said it all. And I'm sure we've all felt, you know, the bias that comes when we try to publish our research. And, you know, this is also one of the things that now the open science community is trying to encourage people to preprint, to use preprints, which are, you know, servers. Yes. And we have Africa Archive that we could publish our preprints in, and no one will be able to tell us, you know, to publish our research.
Definitely.
And
you know,
I really
we don't need it. We don't need even asking them to publish our work. They will come us. If we are together, if we are community, they will come us. But the problem is they come us, they destroy us, and they are teaching us how to be separate people. That's our issue.
Compete. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate
you're perfectly
that.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I like Africa.
Thank you. Okay, I think the next one is I'm having difficulty pronouncing the name.
That would be Abimbola. Yeah.
Okay.
Lamis, by now you should know how to pronounce my name now. Banjo
sorry. I always use Banjo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. Very smooth, slow, and well presented.
Thank you.
Now, my question. The issue of sample size is one major problem in Africa. Around me, even I have the same problem. You want to do research, you initially do your estimation that, okay, I'll collect also samples so that it will be robust and what have you. Now, by the time you go to the lab, you are looking for chemicals, you are looking for this, you are looking for that, you now cost the research. Man, it becomes like, wow, you cannot go ahead because the cost is huge. And you are not finding sponsors. You are looking for this, you are looking for that. I'm like, okay, this is not our research focus, it's not this, it's not that. What do you do?
I guess the only thing that you could do is be honest. And in the limitation section, you should say that, you know, these findings are based on a small sample size and, you know, due to the reasons, you know, that this is very expensive. And for example, because I know most of research in Africa and most researchers are self-funded. You know, we're not supported by big funders or our institutions. We have to pay for the chemicals and the tools from our own pocket money, which is already so little. So this shouldn't really stop us from publishing, but then we should be transparent, you know, and trying to advocate that, you know, this is something that you cannot blame us of, because we are already doing the best we can with the very limited funding that we can. And this is also something that the stakeholders and the policymakers and the governments should start, you know, realizing the importance of funding researchers, because this does not only, you know, it's not only important for the institute, it's important for the whole country. So yeah, we have to really advocate for ourselves and unite, you know, in demanding what's needed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lamis. I think the next person would be Stephen.
Stephen, yeah.
Hey, good evening and good afternoon or morning, wherever you are. Thank you, Lamis, for the wonderful presentation. Mine is just to add on and say that as Africans, we should also try to mentor each other and mentor those upcoming researchers, so that we can end up with the quality research work that can be reproducible and replicatable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And you find that in Africa, I don't know whether I should just let me just use the word selfish, because sometimes you try to approach maybe a senior researcher, maybe trying to seek some mentorship, but they'll turn you down. Some won't even respond or reply back to your email. So that's also holding us back and leading to the increase in number of research which cannot be reproduced and replicated. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Couldn't agree more with you, Stefan. That's why we have to start, by ourselves and, sort of break the chain. We know a lot of us have suffered from senior researchers and the lack of mentorship. So I think we could only try and start with ourselves and be role models for those who come behind us and try to help them as much as possible, because sometimes it's really not worth the effort and the time to try and change the mentality of, very senior people, because they've been living their life with this mentality and it's been working for them and it got them to the places that they are. That's why I think we should put more effort in mentoring our peers and those who are junior to us. Yeah, but I agree it's a big problem.
Right. Just to establish balance, Lamis, I'm going to read some of the questions in the chat because a number of people placed there, and then we'll go back to the people that have raised their hands. Apologies, we'll come back to you very soon. So I think Fatima asked that how can we identify a reproducible research? Is there a framework or pointers to identify a reproducible research? That's a very good question.
Yeah, I think it's just trying as much as possible to look, is the methodology accurate? Is the data available? Is the analysis, like the details, the more details that you have, the more probability that this research is going to be reproducible. This is how I think about it. The more things are detailed and explained in a paper, the more it has the probability of being reproducible.
Right.
Yeah.
I think another person asked that how do you solve the problem of insufficient details of the methodology, because it was raised as one of the issues that is affecting the reproducibility crisis. So how do you solve that? Because I think people are saying that in papers, they don't usually allow you to say a lot about your methodology. So how do you solve that?
Yeah, so this again goes to open science. Open science, there are many platforms that allow you to add the details of your methodologies. Emmanuel, could you remind me of one of them? Sorry, they skipped my mind.
OSF is a wonderful platform that could allow you to
Yeah.
you could also use repositories too. Yeah.
Yeah, and protocol.
It's called IO.
IO, yes, protocol IO. So all of these platforms really allow you to put like even how many micromoles you added, how many, all the details you could add it, and then you could possibly just add the link to this methodology in your manuscript, and this will allow, if the paper, and by the way, many papers are trying now to ask researchers to detail their manuscripts, but if the journal doesn't allow you to, then you could add the link of the detailed protocol that if someone wants to do the study, they can go to.
Yeah, I think another wonderful platform could also be Octopus. I mean, it allows you to break the various parts into bits so you can add as much details as you can about your research. Yeah. I think we should go back to the people that have raised their hands. So sorry, Shoko, if you could unmute yourself and talk. Sorry for delaying you.
Amun?
Is Shoko there?
Yeah. Hello. Okay, thank you. Many congratulations for a very wonderful and insightful presentation.
Thank you.
I think I missed that. Lamis, did you get that?
No, it froze.
Yeah, I think if he fell off along the line.
One of the many issues in Africa, the unstable connection.
Yeah. My camera suddenly stopped working, so that's why this thing happened. Yeah, so there's another wonderful question in the chat. I'm going to balance that because there are so many questions. It's from Kamaluddin. He says that certain patented works are likely to hide the methodologies that lead to their end products. He's talking about patented works. And in such situations, how can the issue of reproducibility come in play? So that's a very good question. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a valid question. And to be honest, I don't have an answer. I think there have to be a balance, that allows, yes, the researchers that innovated the research, to have some control. And what happens is that, for example, some of the platforms like OSF or protocols or on many platforms, open science platforms, you can put an embargo period. For example, you can put an embargo period where the details are not shared, and this will give you the time to do all the research that you want to do. For example, if you shared a data openly, then there is an embargo period that would allow you to, because you did bring the data, so you do definitely have the right to exploit it as much as you can. But then when you're done with it, other people should be able to use it. So one of the things I think that could solve this is, trying to use open platforms and use the embargo periods that they offer. But it is a difficult balance, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we can also talk about the various types of licenses that are there that you could place on your work. I think we do acknowledge that credibility is important. I mean, if you patent your work, you want to be acknowledged for the fact that you are the origin of the idea or the product. So you can choose the kind of licensing that you want. And like Lamis was saying, it will give people the kind of access that you think you want to allow them to, access to your work. You could decide that people could use your work and credit you, or they could use your work for something else, or they could use your work for exactly what you did. So it all depends on how you balance this.
Or commercially.
Yes. And I think we have to acknowledge the fact that although we preach open science is not trying to say that share everything. It acknowledges that some things cannot be shared. I think that's the balance that we have to acknowledge. There are ethical reasons there. There are business reasons there, like patented stuff. So there's not everything that you can share, but the things that you can share, you should share. That is what open science is trying to preach. So I think we should acknowledge that. So the issue around patent, like Lamis was saying, we have to find a way to balance it so that we know that we are contributing to the community, but at the same time, we're also protecting our intellectual property. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Dr. Michael Asuman, yeah, thank you so much. You can unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I have a number of concerns, but because of time, I will just raise one or two. Mine has to do with, there are some journals that when you are preparing your manuscript, they will give you some count, and depending to publish with them, and they give you about 6,000 words, less than 8,000 words. So sometimes you would be in the better position to carefully and extensively project the methodology in a way that somebody can really replicate. But because of the limited number of words, then you intend to summarize, try and go back there and summarize to be able to meet the word count. Because you have to summarize every section of the paper to be able to meet the total number of words for you to submit. So it's one key thing that is a worry. I don't know how that can be overcome. And then another thing that I've also observed is that there are a number of top journal articles where they publish papers from other European countries, not really Africa. But you look at the methodology and it's very brief, very, very brief. And this is not like low-class journal, high-class journal. And so how do we juxtapose this with replicability if you want to reproduce it and all that? In this case, how do we handle that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, because this is what open science is trying to do. The scientific community and the scientific publishing have been dominated by the publishers. They've been the ones who decide what should be done and what should not be done. And basically these journals, unfortunately, are just after money. They're just after profit. They want to get as much profit as possible, and they do not really care about reproducibility or anything on any of the things that we've said. And this is why open science is really trying its best to move away from journal publishing at all. We're just trying. It would not be easy. It will come through time, but it's good. You've pointed that we are noticing that, you know, we as scientists, we want to be thorough in how we explain our methodology, especially for us in Africa, because we already have the word bias towards us of cutting corners. But, you know, you try to explain your methodology and you try to be thorough, but then the journal restricts you. So the first thing I would do is not publish in that journal, to be honest, and try to find another journal that that, you know, allows you more freedom on what you want to report. And hopefully we reach a time where we really don't have to depend on journals to communicate scientific materials. Yeah, but you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much for the response. Can I follow up with something? Is it possible? Am I allowed? Then in this case, as if this is the movement, then open science should also move towards addressing or submitting position papers to university management in Africa, because the policy is that you must publish in a journal that is cited by schools, high impact, and schools. Other than that, you will not be promoted. It should be in Agile, it should be in Dwight, it should be in some specific listed, you know, and you find yourself in that. So if open science is coming, and then I feel like publishing through that perspective, and it will not be accepted, we will not be motivated, because at the end of the day, we need promotion. So if the paradigm shift will come into a point where open access platforms will be accepted, journals are taking advantage of us, we need to break away from them. They are just making money and unnecessary money. We as authors are supposed to be paid like book publishing, but journal publishing has turned the whole chemistry where they take advantage. We spend our whole time, and then we also pay on top of what we've written. Yes. That is the whole thing. So it's a good solution that is coming, but I also believe that management of the various universities should wake up and then work on the appointment procedure to be able to absorb publications through open access. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Michael. I think you were spot on about this, and just as you've noticed, that a number of initiatives have popped up globally to ensure that this becomes a reality. We could talk about DORA and Quora, who are trying to change how researchers are assessed in terms of funding and promotion decisions. And one of them is acknowledging that there is the need to use alternative metrics. I think Lamis talked about it initially. We do acknowledge that institutional culture is one of the greatest resistance to researchers adopting open practices. Like you said, at the end of the day, you want to get promoted, right? So you have to do what the institution is asking you to do to get promoted, even if it goes against open research principles. So until institutions buy into the idea of open and change how researchers are assessed, it's going to be difficult. But the issue is that the system has been there for so long, and like Lamis was saying, you know, the senior members are used to these systems. They've actually gotten promoted on these systems, and they are the ones in the higher position. So it's going to take so much effort and time. You need to have larger stakeholder buy-in. In Europe, you have the European University Association sitting their agenda 2025. And as part of that, for open science, and as part of that, they have included a change in how researchers are assessed. So alternative metrics is something that they want institutions in Europe to do. And it would be nice to see a move in Africa too. I think if organizations like AAU and then the research and education networks can come together to agree on something that pushes the whole ecosystem towards that, it will make it easier for researchers like you and I, who are keenly interested in adopting open research principles, to adopt them without the kind of resistance that we experience at our institutions. So you are spot on. It's going to take time, and I believe that as long as we all contribute one way or the other, we are going to get there. Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful questions that brought up these discussions.
I think I just have to mention that we really know that we are 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes above time, but we're happy to stay here and discuss and complete the discussion. But if anyone is committed to something else, you're free to leave. But of course, we'd love to have you and continue this discussion.
Yeah. I think we still have a number of people with their hands raised. So,
yeah.
Let me make sure I do call someone who has not already. Yeah, Mohammed, yeah, you have your hand raised. You could unmute.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Lamis, for the very wonderful presentation and the very important topic.
You're welcome.
My question is that how do you balance between the open science and the patency right? Like I have been part of a project when we applied for patency, the body was not allowing us to publish the work, and it has been almost more than 2 years now. And even if you really want to publish, you have to apply that you want to publish, and then you can hide the name of the compounds or whatever you are making patency of it. So how do you balance between that as an open science advocate?
Yeah, I think
another question, sorry, that is not related to the topic of the presentation.
Yeah.
I like the design of the presentation. So can you tell me the software or the platform that you use to design?
PowerPoint. It's PowerPoint. It's simple PowerPoint. Yes. But thank you.
Yeah, on record, Lamis is our PowerPoint resident PowerPoint expert.
Yeah, I love it. I love PowerPoint.
Yeah,
yes.
an expert, so you can reach out to her in the background, and she could teach you some skills.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be happy to. And just to answer your question, I think we've discussed this a bit earlier. And in open science, we say that we have to be as open as possible and as close as needed. So unfortunately, now we are in a system that if you are under a patent, under the laws and the regulation of the patent, you cannot really be open. And this is something that we have to, sometimes it's strategic, because you did, the organization or the institution did invest a lot of money and time. And unfortunately, there is still scooping. Like we know scooping is a reality. We've all been scooped one way or another, especially for us Africans. And we have the right, to be honest, to be a bit scared and be a bit cautious about opening up everything. But as I said, you should be as open as possible and as closed as needed. And open science is a spectrum, you don't have to open everything, just start with the little things that you have, you have the possibility to open, and then work your way up. I hope this answered your question, Mohammed.
Thank you, Lamis. Yeah,
you're welcome.
Well, it looks like the hands raised. Okay, Barry, do you have a question? Okay, I don't think it does. Any questions? Yeah.
Okay, I think there are some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
I hope
I think there's one. He said, "Is it allowed to publish a reproduced study? Is it even ethical?" Someone is asking if published a study that was reproduced, or if it is even ethical.
I believe it is, because now many funders are actually funding reproducibility studies.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything unethical. You're literally saying that I tried to repeat this study and I couldn't. Like, there is nothing unethical about it. You did not steal the work. You said that you are reproducing this work and you could not come to the same findings. So I don't think that it's unethical at all.
Yeah, I think I also recently saw Ford, if I remember right, trying to set up a reproducibility journal. So
yes,
that's an interesting project that could promote reproducibility research. So let's look out for that. I'm sure a lot of interesting stuff coming out from the open science. So yeah, it is ethical. It is not wrong to reproduce a study. There are a lot of factors that should play as to whether you do that or not. So please. Currently, we know that there are a lot of institutional and cultural resistance, so maybe you may not really be keen on a reproduced study. So please do consider all the factors before you produce a study. And if there are any issues, you can just publish it as a preprint, and people can just access it openly without necessarily publishing it in a journal. So yeah, it's ethical to do that now.
Yeah, I think Amon has placed his question in the chat. Said, out of those who failed to reproduce their studies, how many or percentage were published in open access journals? I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know, Emmanuel, if you have any idea of the
No, I think he was
percentages?
referring to the article that we used for the slides.
Ah, okay.
Whether there was a percentage that was published in open access journals. I'm not sure they provided that detail.
Yeah, and like the link of the article is there in the slides. You can easily go and read it into more details. You can see Kamaluddin has another question about patents.
Yeah, I think we that's that.
Yeah. And Kamaluddin has a question, what distinguishes reproducibility from replicability? And I think we had a slide on that. And reproducibility use the same methods and the same data, and replicability use different data, but the same analytical methods. Okay. I'm trying to see, did we miss any other question, Emmanuel?
I think we've probably exhausted them.
Yeah.
I think just asked how they could become a community member of AREN. I'm going to share the community link right now so that you could just sign up.
I think also Jeremiah asked a question, any sites for chemistry collaboration? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Jeremiah.
I think the best place would probably be AutoAid. You should join the AutoAid community. Easily ask about collaborations or see collaborations for specific research. I think, Lamis, we may have exhausted the questions and I don't see any hands raised, but it was a wonderful discussion today. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if there is any other question, you can let me know, raise your hand so that we call you. If not, then we'll be ending the session now. We've taken more of your time than we initially said, and we are so
It was a lovely discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a question.
Okay, Alan, you can go.
Unmute yourself, please, Alan. You're muted. Your mic is closed.
Yeah, I was saying that I cannot leave the session without greet you. And also appreciate your presentation. Very nice, very simple, big up, sincerely. Yeah, I cannot leave without give you that word. I'm also happy to join the session to continue to learn. Yeah, I also I have in previous day a Zoom with our founder, with the director, that I awarded the eLife Ambassador Open Science Program. Yeah, I think
congratulations.
The first time it was due to you with introduction to open science, when you give me an overview about all the group, all the community, AREN, Sound for Open Science, and so on. Yeah, but from that time, I start to learn to integrate myself in such a way that I decide to, like I told you, to take that position of ambassador from Cameroon. So I will have the training after. Yeah.
So proud of you. That's really nice. That's really nice to hear. Thank you very much. And we're here to help you with whatever you need. Please reach out to me and Emmanuel, and we'll be happy to help you with whatever you need. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Emmanuel already started to share to give me.
That's good.
That's good. Here.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to see Africans get more and more interested in open science. And it's actually really amazing that, such as eLife Community Ambassadors, ESA Biofellows Program, they've actually said that they now have the majority of the applicants are African. And this is, I think this is something amazing, to be honest. It means that at least us at AREN and all the open science initiatives in Africa are doing a good job in at least, telling people there is something called open science. You should really know about it. You should really learn, because it is going to be a must in the coming year. So it's really nice to see that. Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, that was so encouraging. Yeah. Thank you so much. Just before we end, if there is any other question, you can just raise your hand. Else, we are closing the curtains on today, and we'll communicate to you when the next session would be. It's always wonderful to have our community meet and see your faces and hear you talk and then have these wonderful discussions. I'm sure that we can close the curtains here today. Lamis, any final words for our wonderful guest today?
No, just thank you, and thank you for the beautiful discussion. I think I always like the discussion part more than the presentation, because it's really amazing, and it's you know, it stimulates your mind and your thoughts. So thank you very much for being proactive and joining the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. See you the next time at our next session. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.